moment. So Deanna is thriving at Alta ML as a talent acquisition manager. She has worked in a variety of industries from oil and gas to nonprofits and also in government. Here's a fun fact about Deanna. Not only is she in Arizona, she also loves her Peloton, and she's a mom to two busy boys.
Yes. Yes. Awesome.
Right. Thank you so much, Deanna. And then everyone else who is new to the AirMate platform, feel free to add your comments in the chat box. And there's actually a Q&A module beside it. So feel free to have your questions there. And you can interact below with the reaction emojis. And they're actually linked to your keypad. So if you type in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they'll actually appear below as well. All right, Deanna, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you so, so much. Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are in the world today. I've attended a few of the sessions earlier today and really insightful, really cool speakers. So I'm beyond honored to be here today. I'm going to talk about culture fit and culture add and why it's so important to lean towards hiring based on culture add versus culture fit. We have heard culture fit forever and ever and ever when it comes to hiring decisions, when our hiring managers reach out to us and, say, this person's a great culture fit, this person is not a great culture fit. I think culture fit is limiting in terms of the talent that we can hire and involve internally in our organization. So I'm going to walk you through hopefully a little bit interactive presentation today with some, fun graphics and maybe some fun jokes along the way. I hope you're smiling wherever you are. So here we go. I will continue on. Woo, look, we have a quick poll. Everybody loves a quick poll at the beginning of a presentation. So I'm curious with everybody here today, what do you value most in a hire when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to presenting a candidate in front of a hiring manager, even when you're hiring for your own team? We have a number of areas that people look for. So we have experience, education, culture fit. We also have grittiness and ambition. So I'm just very curious as to if you had to pick one, which I know most of us want to pick all of them. Let's say you just have to pick one and go from there. What stands out to you the most and what do you value the most? We'll give it just a quick little minute here for those responses to come in. Okay. 2 people voted. Thank you very much, I think. And that's great. That's great. Oh, we got 3 votes. Okay. 4 votes. Wow, it's coming in. Anybody else want to vote? It just might be a super hard decision. There we go. Up to 5. Okay. Well, as you can see, and I think you can all see sort of the live results here on the screen, it looks like most of us here today value the grittiness / ambition of a potential candidate for our organization. And I'm like super happy to see that as a major result. I do agree here. Experience is huge. Culture fit has always been a huge, I guess, area that we focus in on. However, I'm sure from the title of my presentation, many of you maybe didn't want to select culture fit. But yes, grittiness, ambition. The reason why I wanted us to start off with this question is just to start to challenge our mind towards hiring for future potential. I attended the first session this morning, and I think it was noted that, in order to stay competitive in this market, not only do we have to offer a competitive salary and all these other benefits, but we need to really pivot our mindset for what this candidate can do and what their potential is, and really leveraging that, not just focusing on past experience. That creates a lot of bias, that creates a lot of barriers for women and underrepresented groups. So that grittiness, ambition factor, I love that, because then it also ties into culture adding and what that person can add to your team. So I really wanted to just preface this whole topic here today on those key indicators. I also love that nobody put education, because I was chatting the other day with my coworkers and I'm like, yeah, like the amount of time I actually spend looking at the education of the candidate is merely like nothing. It really comes down to what they've done in the past, and also like their interest in the organization and what they bring to the table, what they're capable of. So thank you for partaking in the quick poll. I hope that was super fun. All right, so I'm going to now talk about culture fit and culture add. So I want to combine the two. So where we have culture fit, right, is we look at a candidate and we like to assess sort of, do they align with our core values as a company? Do they align with our vision and our mission? Are they excited about it? We do want to hire true missionaries that are definitely behind the organization 100%. So definitely we want to factor that in as like half of our sort of decision to hire somebody, is sort of looking at, hey, do they actually show that genuine interest and passion in what we do and how we do it? The other part of the pie here is, does this person actually relate to our immediate team? So they're coming into, let's say, the marketing department. Are they actually going to get along and have a really great harmony amongst other team members? So I put in here like, okay, we all wear Patagonia and we play Wordle together. Like, that's just what we do. So again, not saying that this person has to wear Patagonia and play Wordle, but how do they complement that, right? And are we going to, scare them off? Are they, so that's something that we also need to factor in. The culture add part is where we need to pivot our thinking about the individual. So we need to stop thinking about ourselves, right? We just want to think about the organization and how they're going to bring to the team. We want to think about this individual and what is their personal values and what is their personal brand and what do they want to achieve? What are their next steps in their career? And we really want to make sure that that is assessed as well, because again, every team has areas for growth. We all know that. We all know that we can improve. I myself, I make 1,000 mistakes per day. So this is a really good piece to add to the puzzle when it comes down to, sitting down and assessing who we need to hire, even before you go to post that job, right? And really sit down with hiring managers. I call them hiring partners because recruitment is a team sport, and I like to partner with people in that respect. But that's sort of the culture add piece into that pie. And so I'll show you sort of more of a visual of what that looks like, right? So we have obviously the organization. So again, the candidate is inspired and excited about the company mission and vision. We have the candidate piece of the puzzle, their past experiences and future ambitions, that ambitious grittiness piece, right? And then, of course, we have how they will interact with the team. Do they complement the team dynamic? And again, it's complement. It's not fit. It's definitely like, okay, is there going to be really good synergy here? I'm dropping a lot of corporate speak today. It feels really great. I don't know if y'all say that a lot, like circle back and things like that, but I find it quite funny. So synergy is something that is often said in the corporate world. I got a clap. Look at the claps. Yes. So I just get a kick out of corporate lingo. So there you go. Maybe I'll try to throw in some more there at a high level. Ooh, high level. Everybody says that too. So anyways, this is the sort of the candidate matchmaking factor when you start to think about who you want on your team before you even post that job, before you even start sourcing. This is sort of the piece of the pie there. So how do we do it? You say, this is all great. This is a little bit fluffy. I need to know how. How do we actually hire for culture add? So I'm going to take you through a number of steps here. The first step that I want to highlight is you want to describe the persona of your team. So I don't know if some of you do this when you're hiring for a candidate, but I like to sit down with my hiring partner and say, what is the persona of your team? And also, what is the persona of sort of the candidate that you're looking for? But we really need to know what is current and what is true to today. So what is the truth today on the team? So how does your team work together, right? What are the communication styles on your team? What are the personality traits on your team? Who is good at what? What I mean by that, so what we do at Outside ML is we have a bunch of different teams that work interdependently together, and everybody sort of has a superpower to bring to the table. They have multiple superpowers, of course, but for instance, Phoebe is the ultimate collaborator. We have Kelsey, who's the ultimate strategic thinker. We have Paul, who's the executor, right? So sort of being able to label those superpowers within your team. So then you know what works. So what are those wins in your team? And then you can kind of look and see, okay, what's missing? Where are those areas for growth? You might even see some patterns along the way when you do this exercise of like, maybe we have too many strategic thinkers. Maybe we don't have enough doers. That's sort of what we need to bring to the table, right? Maybe we don't have, enough empathetic, leaders on the team. We need to fill that gap. So describing the persona of your team, I think is a really good step. It's a really fun exercise in sort of how to do that. Again, it might slow down the process just a little bit, but it's so, so worth it. As you all know, it's like slow to hire, quick to fire. I know that sounds brutal, but you want to ensure that you're making the best hiring choice for your team, for the organization, and for the candidate that's joining, right? So that is step one. Step two, defining the ad. So here you go. You know the persona of your team. You know what's true today. Now, what would that ad look like in terms of what's missing and what the areas of growth that you can grow into? So this is just an example, right? Let's say you've gone through sort of all of the formal rounds of interviews. You're sort of down to 2 candidates that are in the pipeline that you're ready to bring on either way, but you need to sort of assess, okay, based on the team persona and based on the candidate persona and what they would add, what does that look like? So for instance, we have candidate A who, is basically an entrepreneur. She has that entrepreneur mindset. She has a product mindset. She really likes to work alone. She dislikes protocol. She likes to smash things up and change them. She has super high energy and she's a solution finder. So all really great qualities, right? We have candidate B, again, amazing qualities here. He is a strategy executor. He's a research guru, craves collaboration, builder of processes, and he's thoughtful and purposeful. So you can see very different personas. However, they would bring much value to a team depending on what your team's current persona state is. So this is sort of like an example of what can happen. And I'm sure all of you have come across this where you have 2 amazing candidates, but very, very different. Very different in how they deliver their communication, very different in terms of what their career ambitions are and what they can do. So it's a tough choice. It's a great spot to be in when you have this issue on the table. I think maybe in this market, a lot of us don't because candidates go so fast or they have competing offers. So we really need to assess very quickly. So we can learn to do this early in the interview process to really understand more about their persona so that it's a great ad to the team. So that is how we define the ad. Now, I like to call these the 4 pillars that we use to assess the ad. So let's say we have those 2 candidates and we really want to figure out of their personas and sort of how they would add to the team. We need to sort of take a look at the organization impact, the behavioral impact, the team impact, and the career impact. Now, these are examples of great interview questions that you can use along the way with the candidate to really assess these 4 pillars. So for instance, within the organization, we want to understand how the candidate will interact across departments, as well as with clients. If you're, a consulting industry, if you're working with a lot of clients and externally facing, we want to ensure that they have that communication style you feel confident with, as well as how do they add value to other departments? How do they work with other departments that perhaps they don't think they actually have anything to do with, right? We see a lot of that, especially in startups, right? We have to be gritty and we have to be able to work across departments and help out. There's the behavioral pillar, right? We all know behavioral-based interview questions are just everyday, magic that we bring to the table. But you need to define sort of what do those questions look like for you to assess what you need to add to the team. Maybe in your current state, there's not a lot of helpers on the team. There's maybe a lot of people that stay in their own lane and they only do what they were sort of hired to do. So then you need to add somebody in that will elevate the way that the team operates. So how have they helped a team member? And maybe we have some strong personalities on the team. That's okay. They live everywhere. Every organization has them. So we need to ensure, how does this person handle difficult or strong personalities? We can play with the wording however you want. Again, these are just examples. You can assess and play with different questions to your liking. One of my favorite questions to ask in terms of assessing how they would add value to the team specifically is, if you could give yourself a superpower in a team, what would that be? So like my example previously, when I said, Phoebe's the ultimate collaborator and Kelsey's the ultimate, strategy executor, we're kind of looking for the candidate to say what that would be. So maybe the candidate says, well, I'm the ultimate doer. Like I'm a doer. That would really help us assess. Again, there's no right or wrong answers to these questions is what I want to iterate again. We're not looking for somebody to be our perfect match. There's no such thing here, but we're looking for this person to add to our team and maybe make us a little uncomfortable and maybe question why we've been hiring the same type of fit for so long and we're not getting anywhere, right? How have you motivated your team in a time of struggle? Again, a really great question because we've all been there, especially in times like these. There's lots of change, there's lots of unknowns. That's another question we love to ask. So then for the career pillar, super important to make sure the candidate is aware that we care about what's the right next step for them and that we can actually make that happen at our workplace. I think candidates really value this question and they feel more than just a seat or a butt in a seat here is, if you will. So that's a really great question. And then what actions make you feel supported? And let's highlight the word actions because yes, we can get a billion kudos a day. We can get a million Slacks saying, hey, thanks, great job. Those are just words, as we all know. How do your leaders or your teammates show up and have you feel supported, welcomed? What actions really inspire you to feel supported? So I think that's also a really good question to ask. So all of these pillars will help us sort of define what that candidate adds to the table. So by looking at these 4 pillars and determining which questions we want to ask, we need to sort of identify out of all of the pillars here, which do we find most impactful, right? So I will throw up a quick poll. So out of organization, behavioral, team, and career, you as sort of the recruiter, hiring manager, what pillar do you find to be most impactful when you're assessing a candidate in terms of like how are they going to interact in the organization, how are they going to interact behaviorally within the team, and then their career next steps? So I'm just curious what you think in terms of your current state is the most impactful. So I will give it just a minute or something here for voters to vote. And don't be shy. I don't know if anyone's voted yet, but I don't see anybody that's voted. Okay. Oh, there's 4 votes so far. Fabulous. That's okay. Do we have maybe an update of where we're at on those 4 votes? Oh, another minute. Okay. We're going to give it another minute and then we'll reveal the results. So the suspense awaits you. Let me think about some other corporate jargon that people sort of throw out. I mean, yes, parking lot. Let's put that in the parking lot. That's a good one. I love that one. Does anybody else have like favorite corporate jargon that they love? Like throw it in the chat because I'm all about that. All about that that corporate jargon. It's hilarious to me, really. But yeah, throw it in the chat if you feel like it. Okay, so here we go. I would love to see what the results are because I'm just as curious as everybody here. So head on if you're able to sort. Oh, here we go. Look at that. Ooh, we have a tie. Okay, so we have team and behavioral as a tie. We have organization. That's wonderful. Very interesting that nobody selected career. And again, no wrong answers here. It's really cool to see how we're all sort of thinking as we assess this. So well done. I would agree. I think behavioral and team is huge. Oh my gosh, let's circle back and touch base later in order to get a pulse. Steve, okay, I'm going to copy that and use it in like my next little Slack chat. That's just the best, to get a pulse. Or let's check the temperature on this, right? This is what I should have said for this this poll. Like, what's the temperature in the room? Anyways, so that's great. Thank you, everybody, for participating. So that goes on to my next slide. I hope everybody can see this. Okay, perfect. So when it comes again to the 4 pillars, what's really helpful is just to hone it down to one, I guess, one piece of organization that you're looking to assess. So within organization, maybe we're looking for somebody who has a high level of engagement across teams and is somebody that raises their hands up to volunteer and somebody that, is really active within the employee group. So if we put a weighting on engagement at 30% in terms of like the interview questions, that's sort of an example there. And then we go over to behavioral pillar. What we want to see is somebody with high empathy and an empathetic leader. So we're putting 40% there. That's a higher weight that we really, really care about. So this again is just an example, but that's what I've put here. Okay, and then we're going over to team. So we really want somebody that's a problem solver because we have a lot of people bringing us problems, but not bringing us solutions. So we can't grow in that space in our team. So we want to put 20% weight on problem solving. The other 10% is career. We just want that person to be naturally ambitious. We are a scale up. We need somebody to really want to be challenged and take on new things. So this is just a good example of how to weigh those interview questions in accordance to those 4 pillars. I'm talking a lot with my hands. This is really fun. Okay. On to the next slide. So now you're like, okay, this is all great. We know what to ask, how to assess, who should help me assess? Well, yes, absolutely. It's pretty much, we want to not overwhelm the candidate by involving, 10 people on the panel at once with a bunch of 4 pillar questions. We want to be really mindful of it. We also want the interview process to be as quick and efficient as possible in today's market. We don't want to lengthen the process. That's literally like the worst thing you can do at a time like this. So we want to be strategic in who to line up and how to execute these questions to assess the culture ad. So, it's really good to involve leadership, of course, as we want to ensure that there's a lot of synergy at the top or synergy amongst the group. Here we go. Let's not boil the ocean. Good job. Yes, that's perfect. We don't want to boil the ocean by involving everybody. So direct reports. So if this is a leadership role, for sure, I think having direct reports involved potentially in the later stages of the interview, maybe for like a, informal culture chat or coffee chat, eventually you'll get to the end and you kind of know the candidate that you want to add. And maybe that's a good time to loop in direct reports. Maybe you do that differently. Maybe you have direct reports sit in on the panel. Everybody's a little bit different. We have internal stakeholders. So what I mean by that is different departments that would work for or with this person. So for instance, we might have project delivery and marketing. Well, they work very closely together. Business development and marketing, 2 different departments, but they work very closely together. So it might be really beneficial to include somebody from marketing to sit in on the panels as well. And then of course, external stakeholders. So again, if you're in consulting, if you're client facing, might be a really good idea to pull in some of your top clients that you really value their relationship and have them sort of meet the candidate for a coffee chat and see what they think. You can get really creative here, but again, the purpose is not to like overwhelm the candidate and the purpose is not to lengthen the process, but just to ensure that you have the right people meeting this candidate. I want to note, and this isn't new news to anybody here, we're all professionals in recruitment, but it's really, good to keep the panel the same for all the candidates that you are formally interviewing for the same role. It just helps to avoid, any type of bias. It helps to avoid any type of like errors when it comes to rating. It's hard if you have 2 candidates at the end, but the panels for each candidate were different. So then you can't really, compare and contrast where the culture ad, is and how that would affect your hiring decision. So again, that's sort of who to evolve. Nothing really new here. Sorry if I let you down there, but I like the graphics. So there you go. All right. So to sum it up, here are the simple steps. This is a simple step process. It's not simple, obviously. It takes time and effort, but it's definitely super fun to execute. So step 1, defining that team persona. So what is your team's character? Are they all about the Patagonia, the Peloton? I need another P. Are they like that? Defining the ad. So again, where can your team grow? What is missing? List out some of those complementary personas that would really add value to your team. Then we need to really assess what that ad is. So how do we assess? The 4 pillars. So organization, behavioral, team, and career. I think that's just a really good spot to start when we come down to assessing the ad. And then who to involve. We want to ensure that all parties are involved in the interview process, that the panel doesn't change up, and that way we can really assess a great culture ad. What can be gained from culture ad, you say? Well, I'm sure all of you here are like, yes, this is a no-brainer, lots of gains, which is so true. Creativity, number one, obviously, if we're hiring diversity of thought, if we're hiring people that come from different walks of life, different experiences, and they can culturally add those, experiences to your team will get so creative in solutions and in how they, interact with clients and how they provide product solutions. It's just a no-brainer. You'll be super creative. If I hired everybody that was just like me, we would just be talking about corporate jargon jokes all day and get nothing done. It would be a little ridiculous. Maybe we'd start a TikTok channel, and then I wouldn't be invited back to social HR camp. It would just be devastating. So just a funny joke. I'm laughing by myself, but here we go. So yes, creativity. Number two, obviously productivity is huge. So again, diversity of thought, that culture ad, you will be way more productive because you'll be able to find solutions sooner. You'll be able to really create some magic faster. So the productivity will go up, which then increases that employee engagement. If you can show up to your organization as your true authentic self, right? Like if Alta and Mel didn't allow me to kind of be my silly self and share some humorous content on our Slack channels, it doesn't help me do my best work. And I think maybe many of us feel that way. We want to show up as our authentic self and be respected for who we are. And then that generates that light in our engine to get us to do our best work. So again, your employee engagement will go up. And then, of course, decreased employee turnover because everybody's happy. They are, enjoying working with different thoughts and different backgrounds. And it's just pure magic. Again, nothing is super perfect. This is like, the dream state, but I think we've all seen it. I've been very lucky to witness it at my current organization. But that's sort of what can be gained by culture ad. Thank you. This is my final slide. And I think I'm like right at the 29-minute mark, which is kind of magical. Here we go. Maybe I stopped sharing my screen. Okay, let me just do that. Here we go. There.
Yeah, that's awesome, Deanna. Thank you so much.
Thank
and yes,
you.
you actually hit like right at the 29-minute mark, which is incredible.
Yeah, I did not think that. I thought it was going to be like super short because I'm going to be so nervous and just going through really fast. But it was good, I think. So
No, great job. Kudos. I'm trying to think of like another corporate jargon term to like congratulate you, but I can't think of anything. They're all like not more dull. Corporate jargon.
It's great.
And yes, for everyone else who is in our session, feel free to ask some questions in the comment box or the Q&A section, or if you'd like to come join us on stage and ask your question as well live with us in a separate video panel, there is the raise hand function too. But as we're waiting for questions to come in, I had a few of my own actually.
Okay.
So going back to your slide about team personas, how can hiring managers actually determine like their own team persona?
That's a really good question. It's definitely not something that you just sort of think about in 5 minutes and you have it all lined out. What I like to do actually is right at the hiring strategy meeting or the hiring kickoff meeting, I like to present this idea to the hiring partner of, we need to understand what your team persona is. So where does the magic happen and who carries out like the functions to make the magic happen? So look at the organization, the chart, look at your team, your direct reports. And again, imagine their superpower if you had to pick one. And I love it when they have multiple superpowers because that's so true. Nobody just has one, but sort of how do they best work together and put that superpower cape on each of your employees. So then you have like the ultimate executor, ultimate collaborator, ultimate problem solver, ultimate, empathetic leader, who knows, right? then what I like to see what happens is mostly we'll see a lot of patterns where the hiring partner is like, okay, well, actually I have three, creative people, super creative, and then I have maybe one doer, and then I have three strategic thinkers. So then we sort of see, okay, there's the gap. Like we might not have enough doers on the team. This is where we need to add somebody that is driven by doing and executing and loves to kind of get like knee deep in the code and all of that good stuff. So that's sort of what I suggest and how to start. And we just do that together. Or I, hand it off to the hiring partner and they get back to me in terms of, what their team sort of persona looks like. And then I help them to find out how to add in that person.
All right. Now that's a great response, Deanna. And Steve actually had a great question too, which is, how much weight have you put into professional personal assessments, PPAs?
Interesting. So to be honest, I haven't done a lot of work with PPAs. I think I've used them back when I worked in larger corporations. We definitely use them as like hiring assessments. Myself, I'm not too keen on them. And the reason why is they're sort of like to me like a Myers-Briggs or a DISC sort of assessment where it's ever evolving, it's ever changing. I myself, I'll do an assessment, a DISC profile or Myers-Briggs on myself, and I go, I don't know if that's actually quite accurate, or it might be accurate based on how I'm feeling that day. It's sort of like when you fill out an employee engagement survey. If you've had a really awful day with your manager, with a client, you might not be as motivated to say that you would, that you love the organization. So I don't put a lot of weight on that. We don't actually execute that like at my current spot. So we get really creative in the interview questions and in other types of assessments, whether that's the case studies or technical assessments. But with PPAs, like honestly, not much weight. But that's actually a really good question because some people do, and if they find a lot of value in that, like that's excellent. And sometimes it works for larger organizations. But yeah.
No, that's great. And like you said, I think it really does vary depending on the needs of the company and the firm and the size of the organization as well.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. And Steve, was that comprehensive enough for you for a response? I think so. He said thank you. So awesome.
I got a thanks.
Steve.
Great.
It was indeed great. Awesome. So for everybody else who wants to ask a question, feel free to go ahead. But I also had another one, which is, in this process of hiring for a culture add, not culture fit, how do you deal with pushback and getting buy-in from hiring managers to actually do the process? Because it sounds kind of fluffy on paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so funny. And that's kind of it, right? In recruiting, a lot of the times what we sort of how we assess a lot of the times is that like gut fluffiness, and it's not the best way of assessing a candidate. We all know that. But really it's sort of challenging the mindset of the hiring partner as asking, well, why do you think that this person is more of a culture fit versus culture add? Why do you want culture fit versus culture add? Like help me understand what that looks like to you. I don't think there's sort of a right or wrong answer. I'm not going to go back and go incorrect. Like you can't just hire culture fit. I will challenge the thinking and I will highlight the benefits of hiring for culture add and why that actually is worth your while. It's the proof is in the engagement. It's in the low turnover. It's in the creativity, right? So it's just about educating, having more of those open dialogues and embedding that language naturally. What we've done also, like just as a random example, is at LTML, we've tried to remove the word guys like from our speak, just for more like D&I and inclusivist. So if somebody does say that, we have like this virtual kind of loony jar that people kind of have to put in because we want to work towards adopting new language because that actually impacts a lot of things and a lot of results. So it's as simple as just changing that language from culture fit to culture add.
Yes, that totally makes sense, and we don't realize our own unconscious biases as well.
So
It slips
true.
out all the time, and that's totally normal. To be human is to err, right? But it's more about that
Mhm.
conscientiousness and wanting to correct yourself and improve.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. I mean, even as a recruiter, we have unconscious biases, and it happens all the time, and I'm constantly trying to challenge myself too. But yeah, it's just a good place to start is kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. That sounded like super fluffy too. But I actually know a Peloton instructor said that during a workout, and it stuck with me. Yeah, she was like, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I was like, okay,
Yeah,
starting your career, that can be applied anywhere, right?
totally, totally. There is a lot of power in in just comfort sometimes as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
We can't learn unless we get a little uncomfortable.
Totally, totally. And for the interest of time, I think we have one more question. Well, actually, I see someone popped a question in the chat, so let me do that. All right. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Jeff just asked the same question. I'll show it on the stage. I'm late to the
Oh
party.
my goodness.
How do you feel about assessments? And if you like them, which ones do you recommend? I mean, that is fair. So Steve did ask about assessments, but this one's a little bit different. If you do like them, would you recommend any of them?
Yeah. I guess, I think it's really interesting once the person is hired and sort of onboarding or onboarded to find out more details about their disc profile or their Myers-Briggs. I think that's a great thing to do once the employee is onboarded for the sake of where we're at in the market and trying to really make quick hiring decisions, which is so backwards from what I like to do. I like to be slow and strategic and make sure it's the right, but we can't right now. So throwing a candidate an assessment that is like a behavioral based assessment on top of what we currently do, I wouldn't, I personally wouldn't advocate for it because it just lengthens the time. You can get creative with questions like the 4 pillar, targeted questions in the interview process to just kind of see where the candidate fits in terms of that culture add. And then you can also ask the candidate, hey, have you ever taken like a personality assessment before, or what is your MBTI? We're curious to know, right? You can kind of throw that in. But again, like, yeah, we're just in this stage where we don't want to overwhelm the candidate with assessments. I work in a tech company, so we obviously test them technically, which is another assessment on the table. So again, we don't want to lengthen that interview time and lose them to another offer, right? That was just quicker to grab them. So that's just sort of, and that may be a very unpopular opinion. So I'm worried about people sliding into my DMs with threats, but I think that's just sort of that's just sort of my opinion there.
Oh, okay, awesome. No, and Asmina commented the same. Like, I agree with you.
Oh,
With three
yay.
exclamation points. So they
Okay,
really
great.
agree with you. I honestly don't think your opinion is uncommon, to be honest. I think there's a bit of wariness from both like the employer recruiter as well as the candidate. You're like, oh, really? Another test? What are they looking for? We don't know.
Yeah, no, and they can get fatigued, right? And you don't want it to feel like it's a work, like an extra job to get a job, which it is, let's be realistic, but you want them to feel like this is a really fun experience, and you want the candidates to almost be like, wow, there are questions I've never been asked before. Like, these are really cool personalized questions. Like, this isn't just like the other interview I did last week. They're really taking time to understand me and what I bring to the table. I think highlighting that to a candidate, especially when you're interviewing them, so that they know, like, this is why we're asking these questions, is like, that's amazing for the candidate to be like, oh, okay, this is cool. So yeah,
No,
I'm
that's
so
really
happy that Asmina agrees. So yay.
definitely, definitely, wholeheartedly. And then one last question before we wrap it up, because I know we're at time, but it ties into what you said earlier, which is the candidate. How do we express to the candidate so they understand what culture add is, not culture fit? And like you said, the whole purpose of these meaningful questions that we're asking in the interview process.
Yeah, I love that. And great question. So I think it's really bringing that to the table at all interactions with the candidate. So, at the pre-screen call when you're trying to, find out a little bit about the candidate and see if they sort of pass the assessment there moving forward, highlighting, I'm going to, ask you a set of questions here. And really what I'm trying to assess is what you add to our team and how your experiences add value, because we love to hire for culture add here, not culture fit. And I naturally say that. I try not to make it sound like it's like copy paste kind of, corporate jargon again, right? But telling that candidate that that's what we're looking for. And we don't want you to come in and do what we've always done. That's actually a career limiting move here at our organization, is to just come in and do what we've always done. We want you to come in and break things and question how we do things. So we want to learn from you, and we want to see you add to our team and reiterate that. Not only the recruiter at the first point, but in the formal interview, have the panel reiterate that at the beginning of the interview. We're going to ask you a series of questions. We're really looking for culture add. At the offer stage, tell them that they are indeed a culture add, and here's why. Here's what we think among your many superpowers you would add to our team. We like to send out sort of a creative culture add deck to candidates at the end, just to kind of show them a peek inside our culture and why it's such an authentic place where people can be their authentic selves. So yeah, just reiterating that across the process, and using that mental swear jar in a way when you say culture fit. Like, I cringe, and it happens because it's so natural. Even I say it every now and then, but I'm like, it's not culture fit, it's culture add. And if a hiring partner says it in an interview, I'll slack them. Like, correction, culture add. Like, so,
Yeah.
but we're all learning, we're all figuring it out. But that's sort of what I would suggest and what we do.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Deanna, for your time. Thank you, everyone else in our audience, for attending. And we have some great sessions coming up right after this. So please stay tuned. And with that, everyone, have a great rest of your day.
It was super fun.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Take care.